Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and welcome to this tutorial on the navigation setup for the Flight Sim Studios Boeing 727. Now we are going to depart for our tutorial from Edinburgh Airport, and we are going to navigate in the old-fashioned way using the INS and the raw data and needles. If you want to navigate using the GPS, just follow the standard GPS procedure, make sure the nav GPS switch is in the GPS position, and that's basically all you need to do. Then the 727 can be used like any other aircraft with the GPS. But let's go ahead and have a look how they navigated them back in the day. So we are going to start with a basic look at our flight plan and our standard instrument departure. So let's go ahead and start with the flight plan actually. And I pulled the PDF file here from SimBrief, and this is what it looks like. So we're flying from Edinburgh to Brussels. Flight level 330 is the planned level. We've loaded our fuel down here. So let's get down to the important stuff. First of all, a quick general look at our routes. So this is what it looks like. We're departing Edinburgh over here and then head southbound across the UK, across London, and then via Coxie over to Belgium. So let's now go ahead and start working on our general setup. So we're going to start with the INS because the system needs a little bit of alignment time. So let's go ahead and prepare our flight plan over here, as we will need that, but I'm just going to stow it away again because first things first, we got to align our IRS. And we will do that going down at the unit by turning the mode selector into the align position. Then we have our mode selector on the control display unit down here, which we tune to present position, PPOS. From there on, we need to know our position, and we can get that from our parking charts. So if you go to the charts over here, then for most airports you are going to find a parking stand or reference chart among the taxi charts in the Navigraph chart layout. So you can see down here we have our standard parking stands to charts that you are probably well familiar with, but below that we got the parking stand coordinates. And if we take a look at that, over here we can get our exact coordinate as we need it for the INS. So we're currently standing on 205 here in Edinburgh. And if we take a look at the chart, you can see 205 through 207 have this position right over there. So 55, 57.1, west 321.2. So going down to our INS now, with the mode selector on position, we can insert the present position into the unit. Now, how do we do that? Well, first of all, we enter the north or south value, and then we enter the east or west value. In order to tell the system which one we want to enter, we got to start by pressing that key with the N on it or that key with the S on it. So that's either the north key or the south key. Since we're located in the northern hemisphere, we'll start with the north key. So we're going to press that. You will notice that now the mode down here is changed to 0, and the N has just moved its position slightly on the top indicator panel. So now taking a look into the chart, our position is 55, 57.1. So we're going to enter 55, 57, 1, verify that this entry is correct, and when it is, we're going to press insert once. Now you can see that the east coordinate here just flashed for a moment, because now we can enter into the right-hand side of the field. So over here, let's go ahead and enter this coordinate. So you can see it's a west coordinate over here. So we're going to press the west key over here. Now you can see that west is illuminated over there. And now we're going to enter the actual number, which is going to be 321.2. So we can enter 321.2, verify that our entry is correct, and then press the insert key. Now our position is inserted and the alignment process can begin. If you want to see the current alignment status, you can move the control unit to the status position. And now here on the right hand side you can see the navigation index. And it's starting at 9, counting down towards 0. Note that it is an index and not a time, so this is not minutes. And when the system is ready for operation, you will see the ready light illuminate in green. So with that now out of the way, we can go ahead and start to enter our flight plan. The first question is, from where on do we enter the flight plan? Do we just enter any waypoint, or do we enter only some waypoints? Well, for that we got to have a look into the charts and do a little bit of planning. So first of all, I'm going to replace this chart with the airport chart. Apologies, if you click too far into the middle then it closes the map. So you've got to click to the right here. So we're going to bring up the airport chart over here, as we will definitely need that. And then we can open a second tab where we are going to bring up our departure chart. So a quick look into our flight plan is going to tell us which departure we are going to fly today. And it is going to be the Gozam 1 Delta departure up here, as you can see. So let's go ahead and grab that chart right now. So go to sit, and we have Gozam over here. Make it big. So Gozam 1 Delta, here it is. So a quick look at all those points over here, because we got to make a decision now, which is going to be the first waypoint we enter into the INS. The INS is not certified for operations in the terminal area. That means you have to fly the SID conventionally. Of course, being a flight simulator, you could always still fly it based on the INS coordinates of every single SID waypoint, but that would be cheating. So we are going to fly it the conventional way, all the way out here. Now this one here is based on a radial from Glasgow VOR, so we can fly it down to Cambo, and then a left turn all the way to Gozam, which is also defined by a radial. So we can fly the entire SID all the way to Gozam, based on INS navigation. For this reason, my first INS waypoint will be Gozam right up here. With that decision now made, let's go ahead and start programming our route of flight into the INS. So how do we do this? We're going to start by placing the mode selector at the waypoints tab. And then we are going to select the waypoint we want to enter. The INS can hold 9 waypoint coordinates. You can see down here from 0 to 1 is the active lag. 0 always is the present position, and 1 through 9 are the waypoints you can define. How do we define the waypoints? We take that little wheel up here, and with the mode selector on waypoint and the wheel up here, we can now rotate the wheel to number 1, and now we can enter waypoint number 1 into the database. And we do this based on the geographical coordinates of the waypoints. Now, since you do not have the waypoint name available anywhere, I very much recommend that you put the numbers of the waypoints next to your flight plan. For example, I'm about to enter Gozam as waypoint number 1, so I am going to enter a little number 1 next to Gozam on my flight plan. So now that we've defined this, let's go ahead and type it in. We do this the same way as we inserted the present position. So we start with the north coordinate, so we press the N key. You can see the insert light now lights up, showing us that insertion mode is active. And now we enter the coordinates, and these are from the flight plan up here, 5547.3 north, so 5547.3, check, press insert, and now we're going to do the same on the east or west coordinate. So in our case, looking into the flight plan, this is going to be 412.0. So press the west key, and then 412.0, and then we can hit insert. And with that, our first waypoint is now defined. And this way, we are now going to enter all the waypoints. So we continue with Fanic, which is north, 5542.9, insert, west, 417.5. Checked, insert. And now I'm going to write the letter 2 next to that on the flight plan. We continue with Lusiv down here, and that's going to be 5540 north. So select number 3, north. We have 5540.0, insert, west 414.7. Insert. And then again, I'm gonna mark this one on the flight plan up here as number 3. Going on then, selector goes to waypoint number 4, and we'll enter Elbus. And this one again is gonna be north 5529.7. Insert. West 4046. Insert. Okay, and that is waypoint number 4, also added to the flight plan. Now, we continue with waypoint number 5, and on this one I'm going to do a deliberate error, just to show you how you can clear a waypoint information. So, the north coordinate on this one is 5513.4. Let's enter that one correctly, 5513.4, insert, and the west coordinate is 348.8, but let's just say we do 348.9 accidentally. Well, if you already pressed insert, then you can just overwrite the waypoint by entering a new one. So for example, if I accidentally press insert now, then now I have the wrong coordinates in, but as long as I'm still on number 5, I can just restart the insertion process here by pressing the north key again, and now the insertion process starts again. So 55134, insert, and now I can override the west coordinate, so west 3488, insert, and now I've got the correct one in here. Okay then, so we're gonna mark that one as number 5 on the flight plan. Then we go on with Batney, so waypoint number 6, and we're gonna start with the north coordinate 54591, and then our west coordinate 3352, and insert. So mark that one as number 6 on our flight plan, and then we can continue. Next down, number 7, which is going to be, well, note this, we don't need the FIR boundary over top of climb, so we continue with the next waypoint that is actually a waypoint, so that's going to be Dean Cross VOR. And that one is north 54433, so north 55, sorry, that's a mistake already, so clear, remove that, start again, north 54433, insert, west 3204, insert, and that's waypoint number 7 entered as well. So we continue with number 8, which is going to be Lakey. So again, north 54143, insert, west 2589, insert, and then comes number 9, which is going to be Varmap, and that's going to be north 54002, insert, west 2485, insert, and just note that on the plan as well. And with that, we now know which number corresponds to which waypoint. We can only enter 9 points. You can see if I rotate this through, it ends up on 0 again, 0, present position. So with that, we are basically through our flight plan entry as far as we can make it. Now, once we're in flight, we can watch the counter down here count through the several legs that we are currently flying. And when it reaches something close to the last waypoint entered in the flight plan, then we can start overwriting the waypoint that we have already overflown. And that way we are going to enter the entire route as we go along in our flight. Now you can see that the green ready light is already illuminated, so the alignment process is finished, and when it is, we rotate the switch into the nav position, observe the ready light go out, and now our INS is ready for use. The last thing I recommend you to do, with the legs selected from 0 to 1, you can change that in here. So if you go waypoint change, then you can enter any leg you want. But 0 to 1 is the standard one. Rotate the mode selector to the distance and time indication And now the left side of the display shows you the distance to the first waypoint. So in this case, it is the distance to Gotham that we've entered up here in our flight plan. And observe that this distance is reasonable. So in our case, for example, it shows 30 nautical miles, so that is roundabout right. If this showed something extraordinary out of the place, let's say for example 300 or 3000, then that would be a clear indication that we have either entered waypoint number 1 incorrectly or entered the present position incorrectly, and in that case we would have to start a new alignment process of our INS. Alright, and that finishes our INS setup initially, so let's now go ahead with our standard instrument departure. We've already said that we are going to fly the Gotham 1 Delta departure, and we got that one on the chart over here. So, how are we going to fly this actually? Now, if we take a close look at the chart, we can see that we fly straight ahead on the runway heading to 0.5 dmi India Victor Golf. India Victor Golf, if you look down here, is the localizer or ILS frequency, which is 108.9. For this reason, we can already go ahead and tune 108.9. But before we do that, let's just quickly verify which other frequencies we might need so that we can set our radios up with a tactical background in mind. And doing that, we can continue over here, because the next course that we actually need to fly is going to be based on Glasgow VOR 115.4. In other words, we only need a DME from India Victor Golf 108.9, but the first course, the 259 over here, actually comes from Glasgow VOR. For this reason, I'm going to set Glasgow VOR active in radio number 1, so 115.4 is going to go into my nav radio number 1. Here we go, 115.4. And then my DME that I need for the initial turn over here is going to go into VOR number 2. So 108.9 is going to go into here. And now we will get our beacon that we need to use to navigate the VOR that we want to follow on our HSI, and we will get the DME from number 2 on the gauge down here. As you can see, this is DME number 2, and up here we got VOR and DME number 1. On the other hand side, the first officer now has the exact opposite. The first officer now has the DME up here from our localizer and the DME from our VOR down here, but that shall not be our problem for the moment. And that is our initial setup of our radios. Now, let's go ahead and keep planning what we need to do next. So next up, once we are over here at Combo, which is defined by 17 DME from Glasgow, we're going to turn left onto bearing 217, amount to, I believe it's Turnberry VOR 117.5. So we got to use this one down here for navigation as well. That means 117.5 is going to go into the other radio on the number 1 side. So into the standby on number 1, we now have 117.5 to define this turn over here. That leaves us with 1 station left, so 1 frequency we haven't used that yet. That is the standby on number 2, so I recommend to use this one as a little backup. So we want to navigate based on this frequency here, 1154. So I suggest to use that backup over here, so that in case our nav 1 radio fails, we can navigate purely on the nav 2 radio. And this basically is our nav setup for the SID that we have over here. Next up, we have a couple of needles we can set. So we all know the runway track, that's not going to be a problem. But thereafter, at 0.5 DME, we make a left turn onto a heading of 044. So we can go ahead and set the heading bug to 044. Unfortunately, in this version of the plane, there is sometimes a bug that this thing always jumps to the INS position. In that case, unfortunately, the heading bug is not available for us as a reminder. That's an unfortunate bug that I sure hope they're going to fix in the future. Assuming that the heading bug would work though, we just have to imagine it for the tutorial flight, and we can set our inbound course up here, so 257 on the course selector. Like this, and like that we are now fully set up to fly our SID with conventional navigation. So now that our navigation problem is solved, let's have a look into our takeoff performance data. There's two ways how you can do this. You can either be lazy and just take the takeoff calculator you have on the takeoff page in the book over here. Synchronize the weather, be sure the correct runway is selected, be sure the correct flap setting is selected, and then anything else is going to be done automatically for you. However, let's not be lazy over here, let's do these things manually. Last but not least, because the data calculated over here is incorrect at the moment, but that would be a different topic. But we want to be able to do these things ourselves, do we? So what we need is performance charts. Now, there are some performance charts available on the flight engineers table in the very back of the airplane over here. However, unfortunately, these currently do not really seem to match the charts from the pilot's operating handbook. For that reason, we are going to have a look into the online manual from Flight Sim Studios, which actually contains all the tables that we need. So we're going to have a look into them right over here. And this is the official documentation hub from Flight Sim Studios. You can find that under docs.flightsim-studios.com. The Boeing 727 is selected as our aircraft up here. And then on the side over here, under all the different procedures, we can find the performance chapter and tables and charts down here. So over here we have the original AFCOM charts that we can use to figure out all our different thrust settings. And under that, amongst others, you will find the normal takeoff thrust chart. So you can see we need two sets of data there. We need our field elevation and we need our outside air temperature. So field elevation is kind of obvious, just read it from the altimeter. And then we have the outside air temperature gauge over here, which currently is at 14 degrees. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and enter the chart. We are located pretty much at sea level, and our temperature is 14. So let's take the 15 number up here, that's closest. So we meet over here, and this is the numbers that we get for our takeoff thrust. So the EPR is going to be 2.0 on the pod-mounted engines, and 2.02 on the center-mounted engines. So knowing these values, 2.0 and 2.02, we can go ahead and set up our EPR box over here. So that is going to be 2.0 on the number 1 and number 3 engines, and 2.02 on the center-mounted engine. Now you may ask, why is there a difference between the pod-mounted engines and the center-mounted engine? Well, first of all, just as an explanation, why are they called pod-mounted? Obviously because they are in the pod outside the plane here, and then you have the center engine located here in the back. Now, the difference is because of more air reaching the engines over here than reaching them through the duct over here. For that reason, the engine pressure ratio is higher on the center engine than it is on the pod-mounted engines. Now, you may notice I've only set 2 of the 3 bugs. Obviously, if you had a flight engineer working for you, you would set the number 3 to 2.0 as well as engine number 1. However, I'm going to use this slightly differently, because soon after takeoff, we will need our climb thrust. So I'm going to use the EPR bug of engine number 3 to find our climb thrust. Again, lots of tables over here, so we got maximum continuous, and down here we have maximum climb thrust. So we're going to set the climb thrust at 3000 feet AGL. So I'm going to set the pressure altitude 3000, that's where I enter the table, and we'll go for about 15 degrees here as well. So we end up with values 15 degrees 1.84 through 1.88. So 1.84 is what I'm going to set on the third EPR buck over here, so that I have a reminder of what my climb thrust setting is going to be. Obviously, in the real world, you would have your flight engineer writing that stuff down and announcing it in flight, or you would write yourself a little buck sheet on which you write down all of those values. That would be too easy if we had something like that available in the flight deck here. Unfortunately, we don't, at least in the version of the aircraft that we have available at the time of this filming. So for that reason, we can help ourselves with that little trick on the gauges up here. Now with that out of the way, the last thing we need for our takeoff is going to be our actual takeoff speeds. And for that we need our gross weight, which we can find on the pre-flight page. So down here you can see gross weight is 141,000 pounds. And then we can once again go ahead and enter our performance tables. And going down here we have our takeoff speed chart. So we entered with the pressure altitude from our airfield, and pressure altitude is field elevation corrected for the QNH difference. You've got a little table down here where it says, for example, QNH 1026. You can enter the table up here. You got to subtract 300 feet from your pressure altitude. It's a little hard to read on the video right now, I know that, but you can view the chart in full size on the actual FSS documentation hub, which I very much recommend you to do. So next up, we gotta decide on a takeoff flap setting. The standard flap setting in the 727 is flaps 15, so we are going to use flaps 15 for today's takeoff. So now that we know our pressure altitude, our flap setting, and our temperature, we can enter the charts, and today we're located between -1,000 and +1,000 feet. So we enter it at the lower chart up here. Then we move to the right. Our temperature is 38 degrees centigrade and colder. So we go down here. Now gross weight is just above 140,000. So roughly this line here is what we need for takeoff. And we can interpolate this with the one above. So we got 140,000 pounds and we have 150,000 pounds. So we can just about say, okay, we have 141,000 and a bit. So let's just go, you know, looking at the difference between these two being about 5 knots over here, 4 knots over here. Let's just take 1 knot more than what we have in here. You will notice that the values only give V1, which equals VR and V2. So for this reason, we can set 122 plus 1 we set, so 123, and 139 plus 1, so 140. Last but not least, in here, you also have your climb attitude, and that is the initial attitude you gotta assume after rotation. And we can see it's between 16 and 17 degrees up here, so we just gotta remember that value. So takeoff speeds 123, 140, and about 16 degrees of pitch is going to be what we need for our takeoff. So let's go ahead and dial that in. So we start with our airspeed bucks over here. If you move the rightmost buck, you can move them all at once, which is basically what I want to do. Okay, so the first buck is going to go onto our V1 and VR, which is 132. The second buck I will set to our V2, which is 140. And the third one I'm going to set all the way ahead to our minimum clean speed. The minimum clean speed is also available from our manual, and you can find that when you go down to our landing calculations. So over here you have the flap position 0, minimum maneuvering speeds for a growth weight up to 150,000 pounds, 200 knots. So 200 knots is our minimum clean speed that we're going to maintain initially after takeoff for our noise abatement procedure. More on the noise abatement in the takeoff tutorial. As you can see, those values might have to be corrected for growth weights above 150,000 at 10 knots, growth weight over 178,000 at 20 knots, and so on. So these values up here might have to be corrected, but 200 knots basically is our clean speed up here. So the third bug is going to go towards 200 knots. Last but not least, we've got our target airspeed bug, and I'm going to set that one to V2 plus 10. So that's going to be down here 150 knots. And this basically now defines our takeoff data. So that's about as easy as it gets to set this good stuff up. The only thing I just about see is we forgot to set our initial climb clearance. So obviously looking at this SID, it would be 6,000, but in order to simplify the tutorial, I'm just going to set this all the way up to our cruising altitude here, which is going to be 33,000, so that we can do a continuous climb. That's just making things a little bit easier. Alright, thank you very much for watching everyone. I sure hope that you learned something today, and I hope that you found this one interesting. As always, if you want to make this stuff easy, you can always just use the GPS and fly the SID using the GPS. If you want to do that, select the nav GPS, switch to GPS down here, and then your HSI is going to show you your GPS data. Easy as that. But I think the conventional method is much easier. Same for the takeoff calculations. You can see these show actually quite a bit different here, and they just don't seem to match the performance charts provided by Flight Sim Studios. But the performance charts, I confirmed them. They are from an actual Boeing 727 flight manual, so the manual performance charts are somewhat more correct than what we have in the takeoff calculator here at the moment. Alright, and that concludes our tutorial. Let's stow this one away, and at this point we would only do our departure briefing, and then we could go ahead and read the before start checklist. Now, that's going to be for the next tutorial. So thank you very much for watching. I sure hope that you found this one interesting. Leave your feedback in the comments below. Also let me know how you like this approach to the tutorials. With all of that out of the way, thank you very much. Be sure to like, comment and subscribe. And if you really love what I'm doing, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me a Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you for watching, and see you all again on the next one.